Okay, so something is happening in schools and on college campuses all across the United States. A really powerful movement is taking shape. We're talking about thousands of students walking out, making their voices heard in this huge nationwide standoff with ICE, that's U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So let's get into it. We're going to break down how this all started, how it spread so fast, and the really big debate that's right at the heart of it all.
So every movement has a beginning, right? A spark. To really get what's happening today, we've got to go back to the very moment this whole thing just caught fire.
Sometimes a single phrase can just capture the entire feeling of a movement. And this was it. ICE melts under resistance. This slogan started popping up on countless signs, and it became this powerful, defiant message that really set the tone for everything that was about to happen.
And listen, we are not talking about a handful of students here. The response was immediate, and it was massive. Just in the Los Angeles Unified School District, more than 85 schools were part of the first walkouts. That number alone shows you just how coordinated and widespread this was, right from the get-go.
This timeline really shows you how fast everything just blew up. The spark, based on the sources, was back in January of 2026. The tragic deaths of Renee Good and Alex Priddy during ICE enforcement actions, that's what ignited the first protests. And from there, what started in LA just spread like wildfire, and it's become the ongoing national story that we're all watching today.
But this was never just a Los Angeles story. Not at all. The movement quickly went national, and these next few examples really show you just how far and wide it reached.
Take Minneapolis, for instance. You had over 1,000 people show up for what was called a Noyes protest. It was a real unique tactic, right? It was designed specifically to disrupt the ICE agents who were staying at a hotel there.
Then you jump over to the East Coast, to New York City. Protesters marched all the way to the One World Trade Center, and their voices just echoed through the city with this incredibly powerful and, very charged chant. ICE, Gestapo, get out of New York now.
And back on the West Coast, the scale was just on full display. Thousands gathered in San Francisco, Oakland, and LA. They even formed this massive human banner on Ocean Beach. What a striking visual of their collective power, right? And this movement reached deep into the heart of the country, too. Down in Missouri City, Texas, thousands of students walked right out of Elkins High School. That just proved this was truly a coast-to-coast thing.
Okay, so with all this activity, all these protests, it was pretty much inevitable that it would lead to a major conflict. And at the heart of this entire story is this fundamental clash, the right to free speech versus the need for campus safety.
And the issues here, they're really complex. On one side, you've got students who are standing up for their fundamental right to free expression. But that clashes with concerns about, disrupting education, the need to keep campus safe, and of course, the enforcement of federal immigration laws. And then, layered on top of all of that, are these really serious allegations of excessive force by ICE.
So this whole conflict really boils down to two core ideas. On one hand, you have the right to protest. Legal experts are arguing that cracking down on these peaceful demonstrations is a violation of students' rights. But then on the other hand, you have the need for order, with school administrators basically caught in the middle, trying to balance those rights with their duty to prevent chaos and keep their campuses running safely.
So when you have protests on this scale, you just know there's going to be an official response. So the big question is, how have the government and the courts actually reacted to this whole nationwide movement?
Well, the federal action came in two parts. First, a U.S. judge issued a pretty significant order telling ICE to basically curb its tactics, prohibiting force against peaceful protesters. But at the very same time, the Department of Justice launched its own investigation, and this one was aimed at local officials for supposedly getting in the way of federal agents.
Now, with court orders and federal investigations in the mix, you might think, okay, things are going to quiet down. But, as we're about to see, this story is really far from over.
The thing is, despite all the responses from the courts and the DOJ, the protests are still going. In fact, students are doubling down on their main demand: get ICE out of their schools and their communities completely. The core conflict is it's not resolved.
And that leaves us right here, with the central tension of this whole movement, and a really critical question to think about. When a massive wave of student activism collides head-on with the force of federal power, what happens next? The truth is, the answer to that question is still being written, right now, on campuses and in communities all across the country.